Welcome to Aging Gracefully. I want you to live a long, healthy life without regrets. And that without regrets, I think, is especially important for what we're going to talk about today. Welcome, Rachel Kabb-Effron from Kabb Law Firm.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So we have a lot to talk about. So we have no regrets as we are aging and find ourselves in a scary position. In fact, if we were to title today, our title would be The 3 Scariest Things That Could Happen If We're Not Prepared as We're Aging.
Right, and if it's not scary enough to be a lawyer on the program, you know, I see so many times seniors who have made really terrible mistakes that have led them into family drama and very expensive legal bills, and not knowing what they don't know about long-term care costs. So that's what we help people with every day.
Yeah, and when we were preparing for this, I thought, oh, well, I am excited about this show because you educated me so quickly, and I really want my friends to understand these things too.
Sure.
So we always start with a little bit of background. So may I ask how old you are, Rachel?
Sure. I'm 46 years young.
Yes.
And I'm from the Cleveland area, born and raised on the east side, and came back and don't plan to go anywhere else.
All right. When you say you came back, you went away for school?
I went to the University of Cincinnati. Before that, I went to Cleveland Heights High School, and then Cincinnati, and then I came back and went to Cleveland Marshall Law School and stayed ever since.
Okay. So we got you here, and that's good. And really, I love being a Clevelander. I think Cleveland's a great place to be.
Amen.
So, Rachel, of those 3 scary things, let's start with the first one. You had said to me that a court can end up making decisions for people, and it's a bad scene. It's a terrible thing for you to experience. And I said, okay, let's talk about that for sure, because who would want that? We want to feel like we have some decision making throughout our lives. Can you expand?
Sure. So when seniors are facing decision making, a lot of times they say, well, I'm not going to sign anything, I'm not going to do any documents. And I often say that by not making a decision, you're making a decision. And so while we're well and healthy, we can make decisions for ourselves. But the long-term care continuum, and the need for care and the need for, dementia care, for instance, sneaks up on us. And when we have that problem, we need someone to help us make decisions. And when we don't make that decision, frequently families and sometimes other, not even family members have to go to court to get that decision-making authority through guardianship. So it's really important to get the powers of attorney done ahead of time, whether it's for health care, finances, a living will, and at least if you specify what those wishes are, then the family members, we know who's going to be the first person in charge when you can't make the decision for yourself. And we also tell the court, if we need to have the court involved, that we at least name the person that we want. Otherwise, the court can name someone that is not even related to you to be your guardian. So we want to avoid that. But I think some of the reasons why people don't do that is that they're thinking that if they write down this power of attorney, then suddenly that is admitting that they're aging and that it's giving that person power immediately. And the truth is that they're not, but we do need to have some sort of plan in place so that the courts aren't the one that are putting the plan in place for you.
Rachel, I'm 61. I'm so surprised how many people I know they've made no plans, no will, no power of attorney, any of these things. So I'm glad that you're impressing upon us just how important it is.
Right. And so many people have a will, but they don't have the powers of attorney, which are even more important because those are documents that take effect during life. And so many things, so many decisions that we have to make are the lifetime decisions rather than the will, which is, name somebody after you die. So it's more important to plan for that life advance directive than even the death one.
And we did talk about how sometimes, sadly, someone is already in dementia, and now the family is trying to get them to sign papers, and it's not easy that way too.
Well, right. So we want to make sure that we get them as soon as possible. That's why we say, like, getting them right when they're on the continuum, or preferably before, like you or I. I have my documents because I never know what's going to happen in my life. So at least just getting that document in place so that we have like a plan before we're trying to guess, like, do they have capacity or don't they? And so often when a family member doesn't have capacity, the two family members will be fighting over mom or dad, like usually the kids. And so it's really important to, like, specify something when you were well and able and there's no question about capacity.
Well, that is a great segue into the next one, because I remember the second scariest thing would be that your adult children would be fighting over your decisions. We talked about these decisions. It could be pulling the plug. It could be which one is going to actually care for mom or dad physically for something, or mentally, who's actually the caregiver, and then do they get paid as a caregiver, and what's happening with the financial decisions, and where are they going to live next, if you can't be there living with them or them living with you. It's a bad scene when the adult children are fighting.
Right. So often, again, there's like a vacuum left when a parent can't speak for themselves. And so, or when they start to feel that disability. And so the family members just sort of like are vying for the power in that relationship. And sometimes they're just arguing about stuff like they're back at being 10 or 15 years old and reliving old traumas and things like that. So it's really important to, again, if you specify the person and you say, this is what I want and this is what I don't want, then the likelihood of them fighting over it is going to be lessened. Plus, when it comes to those family members, I mean, we don't want to name the person who's really bad at finances as the financial power of attorney. This is not like, the one who's used the bank of mom, like, for years. We don't want to name that person in charge, or that person who filed bankruptcy a couple times. So it's not like a consolation prize. Well, they're the oldest, so we're going to do it. Same thing with the healthcare. We don't want to name the kid who spends most of his time, in Alaska off the grid. We want to make sure it's the person who's in town who can make those hard decisions. And with my own mom, who's a nurse, she's like, pull the plug. I'm like, well, okay, how does that work? She said to my brother, a doctor, you're just going to, you're going to prescribe the medication. And she's like, and I said, my brother says, no way, that's not happening. I said, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be like the elder law attorney that, offed her mother. Like, it doesn't happen that way. So I said, listen, let's have a talk about what's realistic about this. And what do you want if, we talk about, well, what about when Uncle Jimmy went to the, when he had a stroke, what did we do? So we talk about those things even in our office and in our families. And we try and, like, come up with, a plan. So it's better to always age with a plan than not.
So I think you just brought up some really important points too. For myself, I have 3 boys, and I mean, they're adult. My boys.
Right, they'll always be your boys.
Yeah, right. But sometimes the situation would be so that just because the one is the oldest doesn't mean that that's the one that should be named as power of attorney. And you just named some really valid things. Maybe they don't live in town, or maybe they haven't showed responsibility or the best decision making. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of thinking someone could be talking to the attorney and feel a little bit better about that decision, saying, well, my attorney said this is who should be named as power of attorney. Or
right. And so many times I say it's not about the paper that you're signing, which is, maybe 10 pages. It's about the conversation and the process to get to that decision. And so often, again, people are saying, well, if I fill out my will, it means I'm going to die, so they just don't want to do anything. And so it's a matter of sitting down and saying, well, what should we do and how should we do it, and having the dialogue and that kind of thing. Plus, not every power of attorney is the same. So you can have a state power of attorney for healthcare or for a living will, but knowing, like, do you want to be an organ donor? Do you want to have artificial food and hydration if you become incapacitated in a permanently unconscious state? But whereas on the other side of things, the financial power of attorney is much more specialized. And for elder care, we want to put in certain trusts that we need to create if we need to have some other financial trusts and things that we need to do for Medicaid or VA, so there's a whole number of a list of things that we need to have in our powers of attorney. Even things like, your social media. you know, that you have to need to appoint someone, even for us younger folks, but more and more my 85, 90-year-old clients have their own social media. So we want to make sure that we have power of attorney over that too. So we want to throw everything in there, including the kitchen sink.
Wow, I hadn't thought of that. But yeah, and as far as I know, my oldest viewer is 100 years old.
There you go.
So yeah, we do have all ages. So someone might be looking at this particular episode and saying this would be good for them. They might be thinking about their brother or sister, their parents or their grandparents. Really, this is just information we don't all have. We kind of have to seek it out. And I have seen many people reinventing the wheel over and over and over. So this is good information.
Great.
And the third scariest thing we'll move on to is being at the mercy of this giant government that truly is not looking after your best interests.
Right. So the rules, whether they were deliberately complex or unintentionally complex, have become really crazy. So when it comes to paying for long-term care, we either pay privately. Medicare pays so little of it, so about 20 days in full, days 21 through 100, with a copay that is usually paid by a supplement. But after that 100th day, it's really, it's on you to pay for that. And the only time that the government kicks in is through Medicaid, and only if you get down to $2,000 for a single person, or potentially half of your assets up to a maximum of $126,000 if you're married. So not knowing what those rules are can really hamper you. So I've seen it where spouses pay for their spouse and they've paid way beyond their safe amount, and they just keep spending it because the nursing home's not helping them and the government's not helping them. So we want to make sure that we take advantage of this, of the system and our knowledge of the system, to make sure that people don't lose everything. We can usually save even 30 to 40% of their assets. And we really want to protect our spouses in the community, because seeing them, you know, have just 126,000, maybe it's a May to September, you know, romance, where you have somebody who's in their 60s and their spouse is in their 80s or 90s. So we want to make sure that we have really come up with a plan, and then we make sure that we help them know the system, so that you're not at the mercy rather of the, you know, government programs that are huge and unwieldy.
Right. We talked about it being kind of like the snowball effect, only eventually it's more like an avalanche coming downhill, and you really have to know your options in advance.
True. And even, you know, I had a client who came in where they've got some money and they're spending it on home care. And they're like, well, when we run out of money, then we'll move to assisted living. And I said, well, if you want Medicaid to pay for your assisted living, you have to actually pay privately at most places for 2 years. So that was like news to this person. They're like, oh, so I have to come up with some other, like, it's almost better to go in now, spend some money there now. You know, so it's just like little rules like that.
Explain that again.
Okay.
So it's really clear, because
Sure.
I've never heard this.
All right. So Medicaid covers home care through a program called Passport. It's about 20 to 25 hours a week of Meals on Wheels, or 25 hours a week of home care, Meals on Wheels, Life Alert, a package of services. Then you have assisted living, which is like a step down from nursing home. Medicaid will pay for only certain ones that have a contract with Medicaid, and those facilities can actually say, we don't want to take Medicaid until they pay for 2 years out of their own pocket. And the nursing homes are usually every nursing home is covered, and every bed is covered through Medicaid. So, and nursing homes can't pick and choose their residents. So this client is paying privately at home, and we're thinking, well, maybe he can go to an assisted living that takes Medicaid, pay that 2 years, but then at least he knows at the end of that there'd be Medicaid. Versus if he goes into the assisted living, pays for a month or two, and then finds out that Medicaid's not going to cover it, and he's going to be out and in a nursing home where he doesn't want to be in the first place. So knowing the system, you know, will really, and the fact that we can help them with that, you know, really helps them to like age gracefully and successfully, because otherwise nobody wants a surprise when they're aging, right? No one wants a surprise. So this is just like, let's avoid the surprises of like, oh my God, I have to pay this. Like, what are you kidding me? So.
And I have seen the sadness over and over too many times, where someone thinks they're settled here I am for the rest of my life, but something has changed in the system, and now they're scurrying and they're saying, how am I at 90 some years old going to do another move?
Right.
Right. It's not
Especially
easy.
if it's someone with dementia. It's like it just breaks my heart when that happens. So we want to pick a good place that you can afford, and some places will just take you for the last 2 months of your money, and then sorry, you know, I mean, there's a financial, you know, system out there. So we want to make sure that we really help people to be on an even keel. And anything that lawyers do, we're trying to get people on an even keel with knowledge and advocacy, and that's, you know, that's what like elder care attorneys do.
So I think what makes you really special, what I really like about you, is that you're really more on a mission to help. That I hear that when we talk.
Well, I hope so. We
Kind of helps. It helps with that reputation, right, of being an attorney.
Well,
there you go.
Like I started my practice, and it was just basically like me and a secretary, right? And my dad, I took over my dad's practice. But then very like early in my career, I was like, I need to have a care coordinator on staff. And so this person like knows the care side of things better than I do. I know the money part and I know the legal, and I am pretty touchy-feely, but she's really touchy-feely. So we've always made sure that we had that care along with the legal and financial, and those lawyers that do this life care planning approach are really into that whole like holistic model.
All right, how about veterans benefits? We haven't talked about that yet, and that is very complex, isn't it?
It is, and there's the veterans benefits. Well, there's veterans benefits for compensation, like when they've been hurt in the service, and there's veterans health care, which is another untapped resource for seniors. We want to get them in because they could actually get skilled home health or unskilled home health care. Some nursing homes are covered. It depends on the case, but we do a lot of veterans pension benefits, which most people know as aid and attendance. But this is a benefit that for certain seniors who need the regular aid and attendance of another person can get around $2,200 a month when they're married, about $1,900 a month when they're a single veteran. So we really want to make sure that people know about that. There's also there's asset limits, which is right around that $129,061. That just came out in 2020, and that includes like a year's worth of income, and then so we deduct a year's worth of income, and then if the assets are below that, we can usually get some help in the home or basically reimbursing for that $1,900 a month for a single veteran. So, but now there's a 3-year look back for any transfers made after October of 2018. So we're kind of reeling from that change. But basically, if you're paying more for your health care than your income, and you fall underneath that $129,000 threshold, then we can get veterans benefits in the form of that aid and attendance pension. And then even if you're over that $129,000, or even if with Medicaid you're over the asset limit, we can still do something. Always, always there's something we can do.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is just so many layers of details, so many levels.
I say if it was easy, I don't know what I'd be doing. I'd be
You wouldn't
like,
have a job.
I wouldn't have a job. I would be like, I don't know. I'd love to have do something else.
So it's great for people to come to you early so they can really maximize their assets so they're not taking that loss. And in fact, I remember you saying that it is the saddest thing when you hear someone say, do you remember what you told me?
Right, like I wish I would have known that before. And it happens every single week. Like, I didn't know that. I really wish I would have known that 3 years ago when my parent went into a nursing home, that we didn't have to lose everything. Or, you know, I wish I would have known that if I had just signed that power of attorney, you know, we wouldn't be in this situation with court. You know, so that's the thing that like breaks my heart when people do say that. But there's always something we can do to fix it. So it's just, you know, but it's a crazy, crazy system.
Well, I would say probably the biggest takeaway then is that don't wait. Don't wait to take care of yourself, your parents, your loved ones.
Right. I mean, we take care of the seniors, and I almost immediately say to the kids, like, and what about you? Like, when are you going to make your plan? Oh, I don't need to, you know, but I always say if you leave the doctor's office with a diagnosis that you're worried about, the next appointment should be the lawyer's office. So if it's a stroke or if it's a dementia diagnosis or even severe arthritis where you think you're going to start spending any money on health care, it's time to like at least see the elder care attorney for sure. So that we can help. And the sooner we get started, the better we can, better we can help them.
Yeah, makes sense. And we're not getting any younger.
That is, what is it? Old age is a privilege denied to many. So as we age, this is we get to. I tell my kids, you get to. So this is what we get to make plans and to age as gracefully with our family. So.
All right. Well, thank you for this information. It's wonderful information, and we're going to conclude with your ageless advice.
My advice would be to go with the flow. And it may seem like sort of strange, but people that are fighting aging don't do it as successfully as those that are like, okay, what's next today? So that's go with the flow.
I
go
love
around
it.
the river. Yeah.
And that is unique.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And for my viewers, thank you for watching. And if you haven't already subscribed to my website, please go to www.aginggracefully.tv, where you can watch this interview over and over if you like to really get the fine details and the contact information of Rachel. And there are also quick-to-read articles and wellness challenges, all kinds of fun happening there on the website. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.